Hey Facebook, what's going on everybody? Once again, this is your homeboy, Robert Jar Supreme Jarrett, and I'm coming at you with another video and part of my video series. And today is December 1st, 2016. And before I get into my video, let me take a moment to say thank you to everyone that took time out of your schedules to wish me a happy birthday today. I've been receiving the messages and I've been responding to them all morning. So I just want to say, hey, I appreciate you guys letting me know, how much you appreciate what I do on Facebook, with the King and Queen pages, and trying to acknowledge, all the positive aspects of my city and all the people, that I, communicate with and keep in touch with. And I really, really appreciate that. And so right now I am chilling in New York City. And the reason why I'm here is because I wanted to work on a couple of videos that I had in mind. For those of you that have been following me for a while on Facebook, you know that last month, November, was Hip Hop History Month. And so I posted some topics. I talked about some different rappers, some of my favorite rap artists and rap groups. And so today I'm going to do a series of video. I have two more to do after this one. So I want to talk about like some of the aspects and the history of hip hop music, starting with this one. Now, one of the debates or arguments that I see from time to time on Facebook is, people will talk about who's the greatest rapper of all time. Everybody has their opinion about that, and sometimes they'll say, well, who's the greatest, rap group, or who's the greatest hip hop group of all time? Okay, and 10 times out of 10, I usually stay out of those arguments. I don't, get involved with it because, there's never going to be one consensus. Nobody's ever going to come to the same conclusion on that. Everybody's going to have their opinion, which is good because each rapper speaks volumes or speaks a language that resonates with different people. I can't sit here and compare a rapper who grew up right here in New York, say Brooklyn, New York, or Harlem, to a rapper that came out of Inglewood or Long Beach, California. Two different lifestyles, grew up maybe two different eras. So, one might appeal to my taste and the other one might appeal to someone else's taste. Now, I will say this personally for me, as I've said before on Facebook, Kool Moe Dee is my favorite rapper. And the reason I say that is because his lyrical content is what appeals to me. What he talks about in his rhymes. Because when Kool Moe Dee first came out and I bought his cassette tape, there was a couple of songs you had to have a dictionary and a pencil and paper there to keep along with, because this brother was using words that wasn't part of my everyday lexicon. I'm like, what? This guy was talking about esoteric knowledge. Okay, I know what knowledge is, but I'm like, what does the word esoteric mean? So I had to look that up in the dictionary. Then he starts talking about hanging a brother in effigy. I'm like, effigy, So I like that because the man was challenging me to think, to broaden my horizons. So I had to look up some of the words he was saying. Then, he was talking about people like, of course, Medgar Evers. We all know about him being killed in Mississippi. But he talked about Bensonhurst. Some of you may have heard about that incident here in New York, a little neighborhood in Brooklyn. Some of you might have heard of Yusef Hawkins, the Eleanor Bumpers. So, people like Kool Moe Dee was bringing this up in his lyrics and in his raps. So that forced me to look up what he was talking about to broaden my horizons. But now at the same time, as I said, Kool Moe Dee is my favorite rapper. I can't say he's the greatest rapper of all time, because then I might sit there and listen to some Talib Kweli. Okay, he brings a unique flavor and something different to the table. Okay, I can also sit there and listen to me some Tupac. Tupac broke down the 90s perfectly, what was going on. So each rapper, has something different to say, has something unique to bring to the game. Okay, same principle applies when you're talking about rap groups. Okay, I can't sit here and say who's the greatest rap group of all time, because I can sit here and listen to Public Enemy, and they appeal to me. I like their message, that makes me feel pro-black, makes me want to take a stand for being, black and proud, which is exactly what I am. But then I can cut off some Public Enemy, I can put on some X-Clan. They can say something that's parallel to what Public Enemy is saying, but say it in a different way. Then I can cut that off and put on some Poor Righteous Teachers, and I get a whole different vibe from them. It's in the same, going the same direction, just a little different message. Then I might put on some Dead Prez. I might put on some Black Star. or some Gang Starr. So you see, I can't just sit here, or Tribe Called Quest. I mean, come on now, there's so many groups out there. How can I sit here and say who's the greatest? You know, how can I sit here and say who's the greatest rapper of all time? I mean, like I said, to me, I can sit here and say Kool Moe Dee, but I'm speaking from an American standpoint, a black man living here in America. Now, somebody else can sit here and say, well, K'Non is the greatest rapper of all time. Now, most of you are going to sit there and say, okay, well, who's K'Non? Okay, good question and excellent point. Okay, he's a rapper from Somali, and he talks about growing up in Mogadishu. We talk about a country that had a civil war that killed, you know, basically 1 million people. So his rapping style is going to be a lot different. You know, you hear talk about the children soldiers and the soldiers over there and Somalia and Mogadishu and the war that they had over there. Now, this guy has worldwide appeal. Now, someone else can come to the discussion and they can say, well, JJC is my favorite rapper, or that's the greatest rapper. And once again, most of you are going to say, okay, well, who's JJC? Okay, he's a rapper from Nigeria. Okay, so now we're talking about a West African rapper. He's another one. So I might like these guys because I live here in America, but someone living in Europe, someone living in Africa, someone living in Asia might can relate more to music that's coming out of Africa, coming out of West Africa, coming out of East Africa. Brother talking about growing up in war-torn, you know, Mogadishu. You know, they had a movie, I think it came out in 1993, Black Hawk Down, which showed, you know, America's part that we played over in Somalia and, you know, the war that was going on in Mogadishu. Of course, we got the American version of the story, but I'm gonna leave that alone for another video. But then someone else can relate to what JJC is saying about We Are Africa, about Africans coming together, united. We're part of the African diaspora. So yes, I was born here in the United States of America, but, you know, my people, my lineage, my culture comes out of Africa. So that's why I say, you know, when you had that argument about who's the greatest of all time, you know, that's going to go on forever, because everyone has their individual preference, their unique taste on music and on culture. So that's enough about that. Now, the reason why I'm here now and what I want to talk about is a subject that I don't even think is up for debate, and that's the greatest rap movement or hip-hop movement of all time. Now, back in 1987, on September 10th, at the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, there was a dope, freshly dope, something like that, concert that took place, which featured like Dougie Fresh, Kool Moe Dee, a couple other rappers was there. And unfortunately, there were some gangbangers, there were some hoodlums, some knuckleheads that got up in the concert with knives, and, you know, I don't know if they had guns or not, but they started basically a riot. You know, they was snatching gold chains off of people's necks. You know, remember, you know, some of you too young to remember that, but in the 80s and 90s, it was a real epidemic where people was wearing gold chains and they was getting shot and robbed and, you know, ganked. You know, that's basically saying, you know, robbed for their gold chains. So you had a bunch of hoodlums in there, they're snatching chains and stabbing people. There was one death. There were several people, I think 13 altogether, that were stabbed. And, you know how it was, even today, you know how it was in the 80s and 90s, everything was blamed on hip-hop music. They said, oh, it's the music, it's the culture. They got these young kids going crazy, they're acting like maniacs. So, you know, this was a hurtful thing. You know, the artists, the promoters, everybody involved, you know, felt bad about it. So, under the direction of Mr. Nelson George, now for those of you who are not familiar with Nelson George, I would say if you get a chance, look him up on Google, especially Amazon.com. He has about 5 books out. I've read them all. They're excellent reads. He's a hip-hop historian here in New York. He talks about the origins of hip-hop culture, how it got started back in the 80s, well, late 70s, 80s. You know, he talks about, you know, the origins of Big Daddy Kane and Public Enemy and Africa Bambaataa and Kool Herc, you know, who's credited as being the father of hip-hop music or the hip-hop culture. And he talks about that. He has a book out now talking about Soul Train and the beginnings, when that started, and Don Cornelius. I'm in the process of reading that now, so once I get done with that, I'll probably do a video about that. But what happened was Nelson George got together with KRS-One, who was the leader of Boogie Down Productions, and Kool Moe Dee, and some of the other artists that were there that night when they had the stabbing and the riot. And so they say, hey man, let's get together and put a song out. Tell these people to stop this violence, man. Stop the shooting and the stabbings and the chain snatching and things like that. So everybody had a meeting and they came together. They had a meeting of the minds. They said, yeah, that's a good idea. So, and like I said, this is just my opinion now, but the greatest rap song, hip hop song ever recorded was right here in New York City. The greatest song came out on January 15th, 1988, and that was known as Self-Destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Do self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Now, if you were growing up in the 80s, like I was, and you were a kid around, man, that song just, I don't care what you was doing, where you was at, when that song came on, everybody's just, self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. I mean, everybody's head was just bopping and you just jamming to it. But that's why I'm making this video where I'm at now. Right now, I am located at Mount Morris Park, right out, within the historic district of Harlem, New York. But if you see the video, this is where they made that video at on January 28th, 1988. So I'm gonna show you over here to my right. I want you to see these buildings. Now this is what's known as the historic district of Harlem and also of Mount Morris Park. Now Mount Morris Park is also adjacent or is part of Marcus Garvey Park. Now, I've been here before. For those of you that watch my videos, I did a video here a couple years ago when I paid tribute to the Honorable, the Honorable, I'm getting mixed up here, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I do so much and I got so much I want to talk about in these next 3 videos. I'm getting my names mixed up, but y'all know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I did this is Marcus Garvey Park, and I did a video here not too long ago. I'm going to talk about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in my next video. But so I wanted to come here and pay my respects and pay tribute to what I think, arguably, what's the greatest rap song ever recorded, the greatest video. They got all the rappers here except for one. Chuck D didn't make it to the video shoot. So if you ever watch the video, you see at the end of the video, Chuck D is doing his verse, but he's in the studio where he's rapping, him and Terminator X, because he didn't make it that day, but they worked out a way where they can add his lines and add him, at the end. So, as I mentioned before, Nelson George was one of the directors and one of the inspirations behind the Stop the Violence movement and the self-destruction video. And he wrote a book about it, and it's a pretty good read. I actually read it. Now, I'm just holding up the paper version, but you can actually buy the book, or you can download it like I did off the computer. So it kind of gives you the history of it. Because if you know anything about me, I love documentaries. I love behind the scenes information. And y'all know I love books. I always talk about music. I talk about movies, because I love being entertained by music and movies. But, my first love, it will always, it will ever be, is books. And so he talks in the book about, the behind the scenes things that happened when they came together to do the Stop the Violence video. Now earlier I mentioned, Kool Moe Dee was my favorite rapper, and back in the 80s, he had his little beef or his little feud with LL Cool J. And luckily, it was just a battle of words and rhymes. So both of those brothers are still here with us today. I wish all rap beefs and personal beefs can be settled, civilly like these two brothers did. But as you know, not all beefs end that way. But for those of you who are fans of LL Cool J and you saw the Stop the Violence video, Self-Destruction, or you heard the song, LL actually played a part in that. Now, as you saw from the video, he wasn't in the video, but however, when they went to the studio in Chinatown to record the song, they were upstairs and LL Cool J was downstairs working on his album. And so he would come upstairs and he actually worked with MC Lyte. He helped her put her rhymes together. Then he would go back downstairs to record his album. Then he kept coming back upstairs with suggestions on different things that they could add to the song. So even though he wasn't in the video, like I said, he came up with some of the suggestions. He helped MC Lyte with her lyrics. And so for those of you that did or did not see the video, but let me just break it down for you. I mean, you had the biggest and the hottest rappers on the East Coast back then rapping. You had Kool Moe Dee, you had Heavy D, you had KRS-One, you had Miss Melody, you had Dougie Fresh, you had D-Nice, you had Just Ice, you had Daddy-O. I mean, you had the who's who. I'm looking at the list here because they got all the lyrics. Fruitquan, he was on the recording. MC Lyte that I mentioned earlier. So Chuck D, he closed it out. You know, I think I mentioned Dougie Fresh already. But I mean, that was just one of the you know, the greatest hands down songs, videos, movements ever. You know, regardless of who you think the greatest rapper is, or regardless of who you think the greatest group is, I mean, the Stop the Violence movement, the video, you know, that was just, to me, the greatest of all time. So I just wanted to take a minute. Like I said, I'm here at Mount Morris Park, and this is where they recorded it. So I want to just pay tribute while I'm here in New York to all of the artists, because, you know, Heavy D passed away. So I want to say rest in peace to that brother. Miss Melody, you know, she passed away. Rest in peace to that queen. And so I just wanted to take a moment just to recognize that. And Facebook, I will see you all in my next video. Hey, y'all have a good day now.